A very warm welcome back to part two of replacing light seals. Part one was buying your first SLR film camera, and if you've done that and it's a 40-year-old camera or thereabouts, maybe maybe your light seals are shot to pieces, maybe they're fried, and this is just an overview really of how I went about changing mine on a Nikon FE. I bought the camera. Camera was great condition, everything else. Completely forgot to ask about the light seals. It arrived, and when I looked at them, hey, yeah, pretty much gone. And just decided to do a little bit of research, looked at some vlogs, and decided, okay, I'm not the most technically minded person in the world. I can't take a camera apart and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I probably could, but I wouldn't be in the least bit confident enough to know how to. I could probably tinker with certain little things, but I could not put a camera together again or remember how to which part went where. So you kind of have to work out what your confidence levels are. This, I would suggest, is pretty damn simple. It took me, having never really even known about light seals or thought about them that much because I've never had them go on me. So first time, it took me about an hour and a half. Complete novice to anything like this. I looked around for the materials, the tools that I might need. Not very many. And yeah, decided to take it on. And hey, that's what this is going to be about. I'm not going to change the light seals. I'm just going to show you what I did, the materials I used, and the tools I used. So let's get to it. So, light seals and how to replace them. This is the FE, as I mentioned. The main places on pretty much any SLR camera to check for light seals and the general state of repair are here. This is not a light seal, this is a mirror bumper. But while you're doing your light seals, it uses the same materials, and you basically want a nice padding here. I'm going to come on to materials in a minute. This is the FE. On the FE2 and the FM2, you have a replaceable focusing screen, which you change by moving this latch down here, just pressing it up in this case, or in this direction, and then the tray pops down, and so does your focusing screen, and you can just take it out. So sometimes you see mirror bumpers that are just sort of over this latch. I don't think it makes an awful lot of difference, but ideally I think that's how Nikon did them originally, and you just sort of do two pieces rather than one continuous piece. Anyway, regardless, that's one of the places. That's the front part of the section that you want to be concerned with. As I say, this is mainly the areas on pretty much any SLR camera. Then we go to the back section, open up the back door like so, and then we are looking for the two rails here, top and bottom. There's normally foam, open cell foam in this, or not if your light seals have gone. And then also on the door hinge itself, here and here. So that as the door closes, those two pieces of foam meet up and create the seal to stop light getting in through your hinged area here of the door, the hinged area of the door. And that's pretty much it. So to begin with, what I did was clean up the entire camera. And to do that, I took the door off. There's just a little latch there, and that takes the door off, so I can work with the door independently, and I'm not creating any tension on that hinge and damaging it. And it just makes working on the camera a lot easier as well on the main body. So I cleaned up here first, and to do that I had some of these hanging around. You can use pretty much anything, a cocktail stick or whatever. I just got one of these and then got a knife and sheared it down to enable me to get into these rails here, to get the initial rubbish off. I should say always turn your camera off, especially if it's an electronic shutter. Turn it off, switch it off. In this case, once that is down, that shuts everything down, that shuts everything off, and you can't take a photo. But make sure it's off. Also, cover your shutter, because that is incredibly delicate. So be very, very careful. This is actually quite a simple procedure, but it's very easy to do more damage than if you're not mindful, and you don't want to be doing this in a hurry. Cover this shutter up completely, and I'd use something white so it's very obvious to see that you are protecting that shutter. You're not getting your hands or your fingers on it. Very, very delicate. So yeah, stick in and then just gouge anything out. Wood, not metal, because you can scratch the paint. Just gouge anything out that you can get in there. On the door hinge, again, you can use that, but it's, hey, and also here. But what you really need, and I should say right from the start that the main, this took me an hour and a half. I would say an hour of this was cleaning up the camera. The 5 Ps. Poor preparation produces a poor performance. So clean the entire thing first. Don't do the rails and then try and put the, you can do it any way you like, but I just found this the easiest way. While you've got the materials out for one thing, you might as well do the rest. And I would do the whole thing, even if, let's say, your mirror bumper is in okay-ish condition compared to your rails. While you've got the materials out, you may as well just do the whole thing, and then you're good to go. Hopefully in this case for the duration, for the remainder of the life of this camera, basically. So you've got your initial stuff off. Now the main cleaner that I used, and this is a key thing also. So I used something called, which I've never used before, something called isopropyl alcohol, which is 99.9% alcohol. Very, very important. Now, you do your own research and you use what you want to use, but by all accounts, this is great stuff for cutting through grime, disinfecting everything, but most importantly, it does not leave a residue. Absolutely crucial. It does not leave a residue. And that is what you want. You can get rubbing alcohol, 70%, but the other 30% is oily or oil-based or something, and it leaves a residue. If you're using something, a thinner of any description, and it leaves a residue, that does two things. One, your new stuff, the new bumpers that you're going to put on and fix, and seals that you're going to fix, will not stick properly. So you'll be doing an awful lot of work for something that's not going to last very long. So it doesn't stick very long. And also, the residue is a chemical, and I don't know what the science behind it is, but I think it mixes with the glue and with the new foam or felt that you're going to use, and corrodes it. It sort of speeds up the corroding, disintegrating process. Clean it, you get a great fix, you get a great stick, something for it to bond to properly, and it doesn't corrode the new stuff that you're going to put down. So, you know, this is very dangerous stuff, very flammable. I use gloves and glasses, protective glasses, so be very, very careful with whatever you use. Read up all the information that you need to read up on. But all the research I did, this is what came up top, and this is what I use. This is the main expense, and very worthwhile. You know, very worthwhile in my opinion. It worked. It cleaned it, and I'm 100% confident that that it's worked. That it's done exactly what I needed it to do. So just moving that aside, bring back the camera. Now I didn't bring with me the cotton wool buds or cotton wool swabs, whatever you want to call them, depending on the country where you reside. But these were fantastic. I used these, dipped these in the alcohol, and just move them along the flatter edges of the door hinges, just to clean all that stuff up. Kept rubbing, you get black off immediately, that gunge that comes off, and then did it until it was clear, no more stuff coming off, and it looked to the eye clear. The alcohol evaporates very, very quickly, so a mask is probably quite good for that. If you're breathing in, you know, just be mindful, you can go a little bit dizzy, and if it gets on the skin, use gloves if you can. Anyway, and for the rails, again, I just got some cotton wool, and I used some pointy nosed tweezers to just get in those grooves, like so. Just pinch some cotton wool off, not enough that I couldn't get it in, but enough that it would pad and protect the paint and get down to clean those rails really, really well. Get it all out, all the old stuff off. Again, I use the cotton wool buds or swabs for the front while I was working on the back. You know, I obviously removed the lens. When I was working on the back, I would have a camera cup there to screw in to stop dust getting in and what have you. I also used a paper towel, little kitchen towel thing, just folded it up and put it over the mirror, yeah, the SLR mirror, and took the lens out, took the focusing screen out. Sorry, not the lens, the focusing screen. So just pull that latch up. This is the FE model, and take the just to stop any nasty stuff falling onto the mirror or the focusing screen. Just took the whole thing out, just reduced any possibility of that happening. Now then, once I cleaned it up, as I say, that took most of the time. Don't do this in a hurry. Everything's, you know, everything's cleaned up. It's now, you know, nothing's coming off the cotton wool. Sorry, I don't have the buds with me, but you know what they are: cotton wool swabs or buds. I've cleaned it all out. Cleaned the front, the flat parts here as well with the cotton swabs. Nice and slowly, but you know, make sure I'm not overloading the swab with alcohol. Just, you know, just enough. Don't want any drips. Just, you know, common sense. Then it's all dry because the alcohol evaporates really, really quickly. Then I'm coming to the materials that I'm using to replace those seals and bumper. And for that, I don't advertise, generally speaking, but I kind of you can go one of two ways. Well, you could probably go one of several ways, but I found sheets, A4 sheets on Amazon for about £7 or £8. Again, I apologise to people abroad. I don't know what your currency is, but I didn't go with that. I went with this little company. I don't know whether they cameramill.co.uk. Don't know if they send stuff abroad or not, but that's who I went with. And basically they send you less out, but it's kind of, I just thought, much more tailored for what I needed. Now you just get different thicknesses, about a millimetre, millimetre and a half, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters. This stuff is probably good for medium format cameras, open cell foam, but some has sticky back on and some doesn't. That's the sticky back version. You just pull the paper off. This you can just fix yourself if that's the way you want to go. So what I used for this mirror was, they put a piece of felt in there you can use. I didn't use felt, but it seems like pretty good stuff. What I used for the mirror bumper was 1.5 mil closed cell foam. You can see the difference here. This is just a little bit more dense. I believe that the original stuff was this stuff, but I just thought, you know what, that just seems like pretty damn good stuff, and that's what I'm going to use. And it, you know, so far so good. It looks great. It sounds great when the mirror slaps against it. Yeah, maybe I'll change it later on, but at the moment I'm perfectly happy with it. It seems to work really, really well. Just because Nikon used it, yeah, maybe I should have gone with that, but I decided not to, rightly or wrongly. And what I then did, you can actually see the piece I used, because it's not as wide as this one. This is the piece I used. So you've got loads left. You don't need the 5 sheets of A4. You're never going to use that. I'm never going to use all this. This is loads. This is plenty. But what I use the sticky stuff, the one with a sticky back, and just cut 2 pieces out, oversize them obviously, and then sort of just trim them as I went, nice and slowly, methodically. And then for the door hinge, I used the 1mm stuff, which, because it's meeting, I wanted something thinner so that when the 2 pieces meet, it doesn't, the door isn't at this angle when it's closed. Those 2 pieces aren't putting excess pressure and stress on the hinge. So in other words, if I put that door back on, the 1mm and 1mm is going to make it 2mm, obviously. Can I do that on camera? Yeah. So they're closing. I didn't want 1.5 and 1.5mm closing. I think that would have caused too much tension on the hinge. So when it closes, you'll notice that it kind of, it pretty much closes as so. In other words, it's not meeting, those 2 pieces aren't meeting, and the door's like that, and I'm having to force that down. You see what I mean? So I chose 1mm and 1mm here and here. It closes, it meets, and that is not hugely stiff and difficult. I don't have to apply a huge amount of pressure to close that door. And then once I've done that, I've clicked it close, there's no play in there. Whereas before, with those disintegrated seals that this camera arrived with, there was a lot of play there. There was a lot of rattling of the door. That now is, even if I push down, is nice and firm and tight. I've put a roll of film through here, so it's had the acid test, and bingo, no light getting in whatsoever, which is fantastic. So I'm going to open it up again now, and that just springs open beautifully. That's the hinge done, stopping the light getting through the hinge. And now for the rails, I did something completely different. Now, again, it was just based on research that I did. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying use this. I'm not saying, you know, this is just what I did. You do your own research and work out what you think is best. I used 4 gauge cotton, arrived in a ball like so, black 4 gauge cotton, which again, SLRs pretty much exactly the same size rails, and this stuff just fits in beautifully. Boom. And I decided to go this route for 2 reasons. One, again, Nikon wouldn't have used this stuff, but number one, it just made sense. It's 100% cotton. Cotton should last for a long time, and it's not going to have that disintegrating thing with chemicals and what have you. It should be a lot more robust. Again, I don't know what the science is behind that, but cotton, a natural substance, should last a long time. The second point was that I didn't fancy cutting really slim bits like that with sticky back on it. I was confident I could make the cuts, but for this bottom rail it would have been fine. But if you notice at this top rail, it has a kink in, and I just envisaged that it'd be quite tricky to kind of work it round that and not have it stick to the sides of the rail and me get in a mess. And yeah, cotton just drops in beautifully, follows the contours, and I just thought, way to go. Just makes absolute sense. I actually cut these pieces, trimmed them, closed the door and opened it several times, well, probably a dozen times. It stayed in there without any glue or anything. I actually used 4 little drops, 1 at each end, and then 2 strategically just dropped in with a very fine-nosed tube of glue. So yeah, just for extra peace of mind, I suppose. Don't want to be out changing a roll of film and one of my seals comes out. But that'll just, I'm confident that will stay in for a long time. And as I say, it just seemed to make sense in terms of longevity and in terms of just easy fit, and trim it out. I don't know whether you can see. Take that door off again. I don't know whether you can see the seals there. If I change the angle a little bit, maybe you can. You should hopefully maybe be seeing that cotton, 4 gauge cotton thread. The only thing to really mention is that, again, I don't know if you can see, but there is a little notch, metal notch, somewhere around here that that basically, when the door closes, like so, the notch on the door here, the door's on, the notch closes into this metallic piece here. Can you see that if I lift it up? Now, I used 2 pieces. I'm pretty certain, if I was using the foam, then I would have had to definitely use 2 pieces. I decided to go with 2 pieces with this as well because I didn't want that notch sort of moving anything in there. Basically, all it is the film counter. It's the door. You rewind your film, then the film's all safe back in its canister. You open the door, and that notch comes out from the rail and sets your film counter back to 0 or minus 2 or whatever it is on your camera. So I just went 2 pieces. I'm pretty certain with the cotton I could have gone just with the 1 piece, but that notch would probably cut through the cotton anyway in time. But I can't actually see that piece there. Oh, I can, yeah. Just hope you can see that it is just round about here, if you can see it. Maybe you get a glint of that sort of metallic little thing in there. And that was the only thing to really look out for. And that was pretty much it. I mean, to cut the strips, if you're cutting, especially if you're going to use foam for this section, which Nikon would have used originally. I used one of these with a very sharp scalpel, new blade, and this obviously put a cutting mat down like so, and then this has a rubber back so it grips to pretty much anything. It's got a finger guard there to stop you cutting your fingers off, and it has a very high, broad kind of lip there, so your knife isn't running off the edge of the ruler. And just, you can get an absolutely perfect, really perfect, be very confident about getting millimetre, half millimetre, whatever your rails are, cut straight down there. I don't know if you're seeing that. Just cut straight down there and you're good to go. That will hold it. That will give you an exact cut. Something like that. I'm doing this blind because I can't actually. I'm going to get my head in the way of the camera. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is the film. I just put a colour film through it, 24 exposures. I need to put 36 through just to check, and that's the proof of the pudding. Just shot anything. Nothing shots just to test if your film backdoor is letting in light, then your edges are gonna black out on the negative and seep through, depending on how bad they are. And look, if they're only half gone and you put a film through and you shoot it all within half an hour, then maybe light doesn't spill on, maybe light doesn't get through. But if you leave your film in for a week or 2 or a month or something, and you don't finish the film for a month, then it's gonna seep in. And Sod's Law says that it seeps through on the one image that you want to use. If they've really badly gone, which they can be, very often are, then you will just see horrible black and fogging, black edges, and then fogging onto your negatives. This will completely sort that problem. Don't know how difficult you think that is. It was within my difficulty range or ease range, so I took it on. I decided it was something I was going to be able to do, and I have a camera now that is light sealed for a long time to come. Just going to put that back door on, and bear with. No. I can do that first time all the time when I'm not on camera. But basically, that is good to go. If I just take that out of aperture priority and whittle it down to say a second, let's go 2 seconds, and you can just see that mirror slap against that new bumper. And that is pretty damn good. With the lens on, you can get an idea of the acoustics, the sound, whether or not that's, you know, sounds great to me. I have no idea what the original sound was, but hey, it's working. It's protecting that mirror. It's stopping it from hitting something very hard, and potentially cracking it. And yeah, job done. You know, I was going to say that's simple, but you know, don't take it on if you're not confident. You can get them done. People do them. You can find places that do them, and that will sort it for you. But yeah, that's light seal replacement. Well, that's light seal replacement on a Nikon FE anyway. Hope that was helpful. Part 3, as I mentioned, will be these things. Nikon 1.8 50mm AIS lenses. There are 3 versions. We'll talk about that and just how this lens makes a great little setup for this camera. You can see one on the F3 here as well. Just love them, absolutely love them. We'll talk about the variations on a theme, because there are variations, and then what these cameras are great for, what you can achieve with them. That's going to be part 3. So look out for that. Thank you very much for stopping by, and cheers for now.